What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Surf and Sales Podcast. I am one of your co-hosts, Scott Leese, co-founder of the Surf and Sales Summit, coming to you live from Playa Grande, Costa Rica, November 27th through December 6th. 2 different sessions, Richard. Are you going to make both of them this time, Richard?
Yes, but I've made both of them last time. It was the time before that I missed, but I had COVID. But yeah, I'll be there. This time, though, I'm going to wear earplugs so I don't get another ear infection.
I think that you should sequester yourself and not leave the house for at least a week or 2 before we go this time.
At this stage, that's what I do anyway. So
no change in Richard's lifestyle, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be talking today to a Boston guy. His name's Matt Doyon. He is the founder and CEO of a company called Triple Session. He'll tell you all about it in just a minute. But first, Richard's going to introduce our wonderful sponsor, Hubspot.
Yeah, this is interesting. There's only one time that I know in sales where you really want to go from like the A list to the C list, right? That's in sales, right? I got to get to the C level, right? So I'll take that C minus anytime I can get it, right? But that's the difference between contenders and pretenders, right? Is being able to get to those places while doing it in an effective and efficient manner. So with fourth quarter upon us, and people thinking even now about 2024, pay attention to what HubSpot got going on with everything in their new prospecting workspace. They've got they've revamped their deal management stuff. They've got smart sequences. They got Sales Hub, which they've come out with. They've got AI. So again, if you haven't checked it out, I would encourage you to. I also think, look, in general, they've got a good blog for sales. Like if you're looking for advice and stuff, why wouldn't you just go do that? If we're all trying to self-educate and get better, there'll be a ton of stuff in there that'll help you finish this year in Q4 strong. And back to you, Scott, in the studio of downtown Austin.
Great job, Richard. Great job.
Always.
Yeah. All right. Well, we welcome Matt Doyon, co-founder, CEO of Triple Session, author, infinite learner, and advocate of sports style training for business professionals. What's up, Matt?
Hey, Scott. Hey, Richard. Great to be here. Great to be part of the Hubspot Podcast Network. I'm an ex-HubSpot guy myself, so it's good to still be reaping the benefits of that ecosystem all these years later.
Richard, you don't know this, but we were supposed to do a show with Matt, and I was supposed to actually have Matt here live in studio.
Wow.
We were going to do the show together. I don't remember what happened. I got sick or my kid got sick. Something happened, and we had to reschedule the whole thing. And let me tell you what type of person Matt is. Matt bought this special tequila, left it behind the desk at a hotel in Austin for me. And I went down and picked it up, and there's a scorpion dangling in the bottle, Richard.
Yeah.
That's the kind of guy Matt is.
For those on YouTube, where's the bottle? Because you need to show people, for the people who go to YouTube.
Well, I just put it away. I brought it out earlier, but I just put it away. Maybe I'll scoot off and grab it.
Yeah. I got to tell you, it probably all worked out for the best, because the night before that, I was taken out by some friends on what you locals like to call Dirty Sixth.
Oh boy.
And it got a little ruckus. It got a little adventurous that night. So I was not in prime condition the next day. So to think
Well, tell everybody what Triple Session is and what you're up to.
Yeah, so Triple Session, we're on a mission to make self-improvement through organized practice standard for everyone. And that's a very broad mission. And initially, we are zeroing in on our fellow brethren and sisterin. I don't know, what would we call the equivalent of brethren, whatever it is. We're zeroing in on sales, and we have an app that integrates one-on-one coaching with daily micro training. So putting together a series of spot trainings that zero in on a very specific skill and empowering managers and reps to collaborate over the long haul in building the habit of daily practice into their routine to optimize performance and get numbers up.
Okay. That's way too marketing. That's too much.
All right. Too rehearsed. Give me a shot of that tequila. Let's run it back. Let's redo that.
It is, but all of that stuff that Matt just said, I don't know if you realize this, Richard, but this is what we did.
Yes.
We did this way back in the mid 2000s, right? And I did this even when I moved to Austin, I did it when I was at Main Street Hub, Outbound Engine, at Costa and whatnot. I didn't have a name for it the way Matt does, but that's what we did. We did these micro trainings every single day, right? And so, number one, I understand the value of it. Number two, why doesn't it happen? Why are people, both reps and managers, reluctant to implement this style of training?
3 words: game day players. We are hardwired in sales to want to show up and just go, and proactively getting into refining our game, practicing, getting into going through the paces of stuff that we believe we already know and know well because we played the game. We all suffer from the Allen Iverson syndrome. And for those of you who are not old enough to get that reference, you could YouTube that. Practice. We're talking about practice, not the game, practice.
Well, I have to tell them the TikTok.
Yeah. The TikToks, memes. I don't know. I'm Gen X, guys. So actually you both might be too. So I'm still getting caught up with all the venues for social. But the idea here is you have to make it hyper simple. And today, in this era, when we're talking about frontline sales personnel, they're digital natives. They grew up with it, but they have a short attention span. You got to make it fun. You got to make it light. And you don't always want to sit down and learn something. It's like Spanish class in high school, right? You don't want to sit down and go to Spanish and learn Spanish all day. Unless you're planning that trip to Barcelona and you need to get geared up for it, you just want to go. What did Duolingo teach us about foreign language? Yeah, it's not always about learning a foreign language. You got to make it fun, make it gamified, make it an app, deliver it in a very short sound bite, put a leaderboard on it, make it competitive, hit those dopamine triggers that everyone today is hardwired to respond to based on all the apps out there. It wasn't the philosophy. It wasn't that it didn't exist. It wasn't that it didn't make sense before. It's just that nobody really spoke to it in the way that our brains actually think, which is you need to keep it light, you need to make it fun, gamify it. I might not want to learn about the objection handling process I need to run through when somebody tells me they need 2 weeks to think about it. It has to be something else that's going to get you to want to learn that when you run through it. And that's what we're building at a triple session.
So is it, people know us that it's, we don't come on here and do product pitches, but I'm curious about this because this, it speaks to our heart. Like this is what Scott and you and I all, that's our business and we enjoy helping people and we want them to learn. Are there multiple paths? Like, okay, if you're an enterprise rep, here's this kind of stuff. And if you're a SDR, there's this kind of stuff. And I don't want to get into a pitch, but I just want to understand, like, I love this idea and how simple it can be. And, how stupid Scott and I are about one other idea we could have come up with. So,
short answer is yes, there are paths, career paths. So SDR, small business rep, enterprise rep, manager, those are more intended for people who want to get into those professions and do some pre-work because it's really rigid when you go through a path. It walks you through a sequence of what you need to get under your feet. We really lean heavily into what we call skill tracks. And skill tracks are customized. Skill tracks are just like the three of us always ran one-on-ones with our people, which is, hey, what do you need to get better with? You're an individual. You're a person. I'm not going to tell you, and hopefully you're going to tell me, but we're going to come together with this now and understand what is it that you need to level up this week, the next 2 weeks, this month. What's that one thing that's going to make it or break it for you to get 1% better at? And that can be different for different people, right? Maybe you're working on top of the funnel stuff. Maybe it's your discovery, building urgency, prospecting, demoing, objection, whatever it might be.
So I got one more follow-up on that too.
Yeah.
What have you noticed? How long has it been out? Like, it could be a data, like question could be a data answer.
So we built it inside the last company I was at, and we're incubating it there for about a year. And then we took it out of that and launched it out into the world 7 months ago.
Okay. What have you noticed about the types of people other than generational? What the people who gravitate to something like this, and those who, oh yeah, I'll sign up, and then they never freaking do it? Have you figured that key out? Because I think that's a big piece of almost like a hiring question. Like, how do I figure out these people? It's like, how do I find the best reps that are coachable and willing to take that? Like, I'm curious what insights you have if this is giving you any of that.
Yeah. So there are a few answers to that question. One is the earliest adopters are the BDRs, SDRs out there, the ones who know that they have tons to learn. They are drinking from fire hoses now when you think of all the tools that they need, all of the apps that they need to get down, the skills that they need to get better with, and all of them want to get the hell out of that job as quickly as possible, prove themselves, and get ready for an AE role or a manager role to lead a BDR team. So we've seen the biggest leaps forward and the biggest traction with those frontline salespeople. But the pleasant surprise is that sales enablement professionals have started to come in on their own without us doing a lot of prodding, just with a lot of publication on social and being active in communities. Sales enablement professionals have this challenge overwhelmingly, which is they buy a tool, they create tons of training material, and it sits there. Nobody uses it. Because the idea
about the salespeople, like I like the fact that enablement, I'm curious to see what, I kind of get it, but like, is it the generational, it's the Richard Harris's, Grumpy Gus salespeople who were, 37 years old plus, kind of that don't like it? Or no, actually, we've been pleasantly surprised that they do like it because they get it and they like those little snippets.
It's the outliers in our generation. The Gen Xers are the outliers, the ones that are really adamant about constantly learning, constantly improving. One example of that is a guy at HubSpot who runs marathons, and he was a cycling champion out of Ireland. And he's like always on the cutting edge, and there's anything that he can learn, he's going to gobble it up. And you put a number next to his name, he needs to have that number be number one. So a lot of the stuff that we built in, that very Duolingo-like functionality, speaks directly to him, as does the fact that he's constantly paranoid that he doesn't know enough. And none of us really do. That's the dirty little secret that most salespeople that perform well have hidden behind the scenes, where there's so much going on all the time that's changing so fast, AI all over the place, different markets. It's getting way more competitive now than ever. What got us here won't get us there. And being complacent is not anyone's friend. So to answer your question in a very long-winded way, Richard, we do get the Gen Xers, and they are the outliers who get in there. Most of them are, no, I've been selling for 15 years. Leave me alone. I know what to do. I have my skills down. I know where to lean and where to put my thumb on the scale during certain conversations, and I'm good. Where we get the most traction are first 5 years in sales, drinking from a fire hose. Tons I need to learn, tons I need to move on with. And I need to prove what I know, not only to myself, but I'm probably going to be looking for a new job in the next 18 months, either in the company I'm at now, trying to get a promotion, or I'm going to be back in the market because millennials and Zoomers change jobs constantly. So they want to take those skills and have that as part of their resume.
Change jobs constantly. How much of that is their choosing? How much of that is them choosing to change jobs versus the tumult that has been going on over the course of the last few years? Companies shuttering, mismanagement, pandemics, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah. So, I had my last job for 8 years. And that today, when you talk to somebody in the market, that is like a foreign concept.
It's a foreign concept to me. The longest I've ever worked someplace is 4 years and 1 month now. And guess where that is? Working for myself. So the longest run I ever had at another company was 3 years and 1 month.
Yeah.
Scott, you're about time to retire yourself.
8 years to me, that's like insane. And I'm not, a spring chicken. So you're the outlier to me.
Sure.
Being somewhere for
Scott, it's about time for you to fire yourself, I think, if you've been.
Yeah, I deserve it. Let me tell you.
you're gonna get frustrated with yourself, and then fire yourself.
I think you were asking a why question, Scott. So why is it that people are changing so much? And that's above my pay grade. I don't have the answers in terms of why. What I know is the what the data tells us. As you move younger and younger generationally, the number of jobs and job changes and the speed at which jobs and roles change increases.
Do you think that's because people aren't given the opportunity to learn new skills and try out different things and kind of spread their wings, and they don't want to be pigeonholed into doing one thing over and over and over?
I don't think that that's what it was. I think that's where we are now. And let me explain. A lot of this was happening before the current economy that we're working in, before COVID. The data was showing that new entrants into the workplace were moving around and job hopping a lot. And they were doing it voluntarily. So we saw that during COVID, right? Where everyone was quitting, going after new jobs that were going to pay them twice as much. And there was a huge mass exodus that was happening. What are we looking at today? It's kind of reversed, right? I was looking at the statistics just yesterday. U.S. economy added 330,000 jobs in September. The U.S. tech economy shedded 2,300 jobs in September. So as we're adding jobs as a global economy in the U.S., we're losing them in tech. So everybody's looking to hang on, and the ones that are getting cut, in sales anyway, we know who they are. They are not proven performers. They're not showing up, and we have an easy profession to prove value in, right? You're either putting your numbers on the board or you're not. So a lot of that's involuntary now, and that's scary. And I think what we're seeing now, what we'll continue to see, is both aspects, both ends of this spectrum. There's going to still be a lot of voluntary movement. People want to jump to a new career, new job, new industry, get a promotion, and they know they can go from SDR to rep at another company or rep to manager at another company. That will still happen, as will cutting the bottom 10% of a sales force, Jack Welch style, because they're just not performing. And now sales efficiency is the quote everybody needs to keep top of mind. It's not lead efficiency. It's not revenue. It's sales efficiency, rep efficiency, revenue per rep. The CRO, CSO, VP of sales, they're not calling the shots anymore in that boardroom. CFO is.
I'm sitting here wondering if I ever called the shots, or if I always lost to CFO and CEO. Did you ever call the shots, Richard? How much power and authority did you have when you were a sales leader?
Excluding over you?
Yes.
Very little. Like, I've been around longer than most, and even as early as the early 2000s, granted I was in the Bay Area, so it was sort of the post-dot bomb, the whole approval process shifted. And I also think that's partially because I stayed at smaller tech companies, 100, 200. Yeah. When you go to a big company, like, you get a budget, right? And it became one of my questions eventually when I was interviewing back in the day of like, do I have my own budget? Can I go get something approved? Like I now work at one startup, and Scott, I don't know if you remember the story. It's like, I was told yes in the interview, and then when I wanted to go and buy, actually, Hubspot for, just the ability to see when someone opened an email, which was like $10 a user a month, and we needed 3 licenses, I was, I had to have a 30 or 45-minute meeting, right?
Yeah.
So,
you noticed that? Because, Matt, you back in 2011, you were at a company that I was indirectly / directly competing against. You were selling for the management team at Yodel, which is like SMB, transactional sales, startup. And then you moved to go work for HubSpot.
Right.
Huge jump from small startup to big corporate world, although maybe they weren't as big back then.
Back then, HubSpot. Well, just the corporate culture and the sales motion were a pretty big transition because Yodel was very run and gun, transactional, outbound driven. It was the most outbound driven sales process I had ever been in. And then go to HubSpot, which was the most inbound driven sales process, especially back then. This was back when HubSpot had 400 employees total, fewer than 100 in the sales team. So compared to what they are today, that's like cottage industry, mom and pop shop days.
Do you think it's easier to take a rep who's done this like extreme outbound Yodel style thing and put them into an inbound environment like HubSpot and have them succeed? Or is it easier to take somebody who's been at HubSpot in this extreme inbound model and move them into this extreme outbound model and have success?
I will take option A every day of the week and twice on Sunday. You want to have somebody who has run through the gauntlet of outbound selling, and then send them into that much more. It's not easy. And again, part of the misconception is, going to an inbound sales motion, now it's easy. They're coming to you. Certainly not easy. Easier, unquestionable. Unquestionable.
And yet, the people who come from these like high velocity kind of sales environments, you're even now, like, you're still kind of looked down upon in a way. Like, that was a less than kind of role. And I, like you, have always been like, what are you talking about? I can take those people who have run through literal hellfire every day and teach them this other thing. But I can't take somebody from HubSpot or whatever other company and stick them into the Yodel arena. You wouldn't last a moment.
Yeah, the analogy I always used when I was explaining this is I can put a leash on a pit bull and teach them how to roll over. I can't really put dentures in a poodle and make that poodle bite and have sharp teeth. That's just not going to work. Yeah. So, as far as raw material and some of that hard wiring that goes into it, outbound, I would recommend anyone who wants to start a sales career now and really be hardwired the right way, start as a BDR. Go do outbound for a year and start to create your own pipeline out of thin air. Nothing will be a better foundation for you in a sales career than that. It's going to suck. Charge into the suck. Invite the suck. Embrace the suck, because it will shape you for the rest of your career. That's where I started.
Yeah, I agree. I want to got to do a quick mid-roll, but wanted to pre-ask the question, which is, what are you seeing shift in the sales world, right? There's the AI, there's the belief that the SDR role will go through a heavy reconstruction. So that's my question. I'm curious what you think the future looks like. But first, I want to take a minute and thank HubSpot and let people know about John Barrows and Make It Happen Mondays, which is one of our favorite podcasts too. It might be the only one that, that Scott's ever actually listened to as a podcast. I don't even know if Scott's listened to ours, but Making It Happen Mondays offers actionable sales tips and help close more business. John brings in amazing guests, such as myself and Scott and, some other big names. But that's the sarcasm, people. Thank you, Hubspot Podcast Network, and go check out John, Make It Happen Mondays. Not one of my favorite mid-rolls, Scott. I don't know if I like that one. So,
hey, that's all right. You can't be perfect all the time, Richard. Done?
Yeah.
Better than perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. That might be a C+, maybe. But anyway, so Matt, coming back, like what do you think the future holds? Pull out the crystal ball and tell us, oh Swami.
Okay. So I have some very strong opinions on this, and I get a lot of disagreement, but
we should have started here.
They could be contrarian. So let me get into it. First, we need to look at the macro stuff to get some context. What's happening more broadly? Because a lot of people think that we're just going through one of these natural cycles where market's contracting, people are getting laid off, it's going to be brief, we're going to be back into the swing of things very soon. Not so. What's happening? broadly speaking, and I'm going to bore everybody for 2 minutes here with a macroeconomics course. Baby boomers, the youngest baby boomer in the market right now, 57 years old. They're all retiring very, very fast. Most of the baby boomers are already out. What does that mean? They take their capital with them. They go from putting it in the stock market to putting it in cash and T-bills. What does that do? It makes everything more expensive. Fed increases the interest rates because they're scrambling around trying to replace all of the lost tax money that they were getting from those baby boomers who are still working. We're now out of the job market and now sucking the government dry from all those benefits that they're getting. So the interest rates going up, T-bills are getting more beneficial, putting your money into safe accounts. What does that mean? More investments going there. That goes to the family offices and the endowments. Those are the two big players for VC capital. So if you don't know how the VC capital world works, venture capitalists are fueled mostly by family offices, rich families that have tons of money and they're moving money around, or endowments, universities, pensions funds, whatever. More of those institutions are shifting their money to these safe 5, 6, 7, 8, who knows how high it's going to go, safe government investments that they can get. What does that mean? Less VC money, less investment. That shows up on the balance sheet. That means that we're going to hire fewer salespeople. We're going to be much more rigid about how we're spending that money. There's less money at our customers who we're selling to. So us in sales, we're seeing that show up with longer sales cycles, lower conversion rates. No, we got to wait. We got to look at things. We're not going to buy. We're going to contract and try to cancel subscriptions where we can. This is not a moment that's just going to pass in a month or a quarter or a year. This is generational. We're not going to be out of the woods here for another decade. And why do I say that? And I say that with a lot of apprehension because the people that are going to save us from all of this are the millennials. And I can't believe I have to say that as a Gen Xer, but it's the millennials, this nice big cohort of a populace who is just as big, a little bit bigger actually than the boomers. I'm a Gen Xer. There just aren't enough of us to replace all the investment capital. Interest rates are going to stay high. Inflation's going to stay high. That is going to impact the sales landscape. So I'm referring to this as a nuclear winter. We're in this for another 10 years. Everything's going to be optimized.
Geez, this is total Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
Well,
it is. You're going to see sales teams contract. You are going to see a couple professions in sales win out of this, namely sales enablement and sales operations, revenue operations. The people who are looking and influencing revenue per rep performance, they're going to be fine because finance is going to look at them and say, okay, we need them because we need to make sure every SDR, BDR, rep, everyone is maximizing their output in productivity. Those bottom 15, maybe even 20% of reps on the team that could have hung around previously, they're gone. Now, the top performing reps, they're going to end up being big winners too, because they know how to get the job done, and there are going to be fewer of those bottom feeder reps who are eating into their lead pools. And now they're going to get the benefits of having lead pools that come in, but it's going to be a tough 10 years, and people have to take action on this.
So what do people do, right, to stay relevant? Is it the self-learning, the training? Is it like, because I've never thought about it the way you said, but I've always been saying for a long time that, as the baby boomers move out, there's just not enough people behind them, and so what do we do to create our own, career security?
Right. So, yeah. And this is where if you sit back and you are complacent, obviously nobody listening to this podcast fits that bill because they wouldn't be listening to Surf and Sales if they were. But for those friends of yours who are not listening to this podcast and need to take action, you need to get in the game at every level of your process. And I don't just mean the 9-to-5 sales process that you're running. When we look at this, we need to look at this from a Tom Brady perspective. You need to optimize everything, every throw, every move, every day at practice, what you eat, how you sleep, how you think, everything that you're doing to prepare for it. You want to be completely paranoid about everything. And that's the way that you're going to maximize the chances of survival. So you have to look at not just the technical skills. Those are the obvious ones that still most salespeople do not look to optimize. How do I prospect? How do I look to build pipeline? How do I make sure that I'm connecting the best way? How do I run the best world-class discovery out there? How do I make sure that I'm using all of the tools that are available with AI right now and taking what I can from that? How do I know how to multi-thread and build mutual action plans? There's a lot of great content out there. How am I using community? I know you guys are working on community a lot. Community is where the puck is going. So Wayne Gretzky, skate where the puck is going to. Community is where the puck is going to. How do you start skating in that direction now so you're not left out in the cold in 5 years when everybody else is doing it? You want to be first there. So how do you stay cutting edge with all of these skills and study things like time management and business acumen? Are you following the publications of your customer? Are you in their communities? Are you reading up and staying cutting edge with what they care about? You need to be plugged in there. You can't sit back and just wing it on the demo anymore. And professional skills across the board. You need to optimize everything. You need to play the game like a professional athlete would. And if you don't, you're going to be at risk of getting cut.
I think that's the longest we've ever let someone go on a soliloquy, and Richard didn't interrupt them because it was so good. You know, it's like everybody.
That's like an SKO speech right there.
I was going to say, everybody who's listening, if you haven't already, go back to the beginning of this. Yeah, listen to what Matt said, and probably write some shit down, right? One of the things you need to optimize, oh my God, it's every single thing. It's every single moment. It's getting multi-threaded. It's building mutual action plans. It's discovery. Like, it was just awesome. Thank you.
Here's my, this is not really a rebuttal. It scares me that I don't disagree with you, unfortunately. My rebuttal, though, is that sounds absolutely exhausting to analyze my life like Tom Brady did, and think I need to optimize every little single thing that I do, because it makes me wonder, is that actually what my life is all about? But hold on. Let me finish a 60-second rant. You let Matt go on for 6 minutes. Come on, Richard.
Smart.
So, but is that what it's all about? Like, do I really want to squeeze every last bit of productivity out of myself? Do I need to optimize for every last possible day I can breathe on this earth? I don't know. I don't know that I want to do that. I think that there was periods of my life where I did want to do that. Do I want to do that now at 46 years old? I don't know. And I think that there's a lot of people that would listen to your speech that you just made and just be like, fuck me, like, and head in the sand, ostrich style, just like, I can't deal with it. So I'm just going to say that's too exhausting. I don't want to think like that. I don't want to live like that. And therefore, I'm going to try to go the opposite direction.
Sure. Yeah. I think I'm going to rebut your rebuttal.
Yeah, go for it.
So I agree with you, Scott, and recognize also what you said is that at our stage of life, that's exhausting, right? And I don't know you in your 20s, maybe your late 20s, but I do know that earlier on you were in that growth mindset, right? And I think that is happening a little bit at the younger generation. So I think it's, the question is, if I'm early in my career, what do I want to do? If I'm later in my career, okay, I'll optimize a couple of things. I'm not going to optimize it all. So it's interesting because it feels like a smart and will be interpreted differently by the generations. What what I also, I just read this the other day too, is that the Gen Zs are saving less because of the lifestyle they want to live now and not the retirement, which is concerning. And maybe they'll, grow into this. Well, hold on a second. There's only so many nice dinners I should really go out and have right now versus growing this kind of, this other piece. But that also is a play of this too, where I think the millennials and the Gen Zs, they've grown up scared a little bit about a financial crisis, which I find interesting that article says they're saving less. But also they've taught us, which how to relax and live life a little bit. That like this work-life balance does matter, because that's not what I did. It's not what Gen X did or the boomers, right? So it is going to be an interesting petri dish for the next 10 years to see where this goes.
So to comment on the rebuttal, not rebut the rebuttal because it wasn't a rebuttal, but keep the commentary alive. Yeah, plenty of people are going to say, you know what? That sounds ridiculous to me. I am not going to live my life like that. I'm good just getting in and, I'm a good professional, but being a good professional is good enough. And then I'm going to go, be lax, wake up whenever and, not plan anything out and not overly structure. And that's fine. But we have to understand that given what I just described as far as the next 10 years, that is going to come with a higher degree of risk.
Yeah.
And what you also have to agree with is that if you're not focusing on optimizing everything, you're okay with performing less than you could. And that's fine if somebody wants that. But that comes with greater risk. Yes, you're going to do less. That could be okay. Your risk of losing your job, getting cut, is going to be greater. Okay. Of not getting that president's club that you want or the promotion you want, that's going to be greater. Maybe that's okay as well. We're not here for them. So with what I'm talking about, and not to pitch product here, but with the solution that we offer and the problem that we're solving, it's not for people who don't want to be Navy SEALs. Not everyone wants to be a Navy SEAL. If you don't want to go through Hell Week and, carry logs on your back and put boats on your, then don't do that. That's fine. But if you want to be a Navy SEAL, this is what it's going to take. This is just telling you the way it is. I fortunately had the opportunity.
I wonder if there will be more or less Navy SEALs in the next 10 years.
I believe that their extremes are going to come out on both ends. There are going to be more people who do exactly what you said. And if we just look at what the data shows in terms of the demographics and the generation that's coming out right now, highest anxiety, they feel the most pressure, they're the least integrated, they don't, they don't drive as much, they don't drink as much, they don't party as much, they feel the anxiety. So I think they're going to drop out of sales. We're going to see the sales dropout rate higher. But they also work their asses off when they find the right job. They're really smart. They know things that we don't know because they grew up in this digital era. And we're going to see them really move into this Navy SEAL-like mentality where they're going to be maniacal about this stuff. I mean, we see it everywhere. All this optimization stuff with Fitbit and everything physically and watching every calorie and everything that's going into your system and all these things that we can measure and track now. That didn't come out of nowhere. There's a market for that. And we're just in the moment of it. So there's going to be more of both.
Interesting moment. We're in the moment of people trying to optimize everything and making money off it by basically saying here's how I optimize my life by not cooking ever. All I do is order Uber Eats for every meal. It's like, there's a market for that, I guess, but is that the way? Do we need more of those people? I don't know if we do, but there's going to be more of them.
I know a lot of people who don't buy cars anymore because they Uber everywhere. And it's like, if I'm going to buy a car, it's sitting in the garage most of the time and I'm paying for that and it depreciates. And I just want to have a variable cost of Uber, not a fixed cost of a car.
This has been super interesting. especially the back half of this, starting with that thesis rant, which was fantastic. We got to move to wrap the show. Is there anything that we can answer for you? Do you have any questions for us? Is there something we can do to be helpful for you, Matt?
I do. I know you guys work a lot with teams and their go-to-market and working on a lot of these same problems. How do I optimize performance and really help that team go to the next level, whether it's structuring the process or optimizing their team, helping their coaches coach better, their trainers train better, whatever it might be? I'd be curious to hear from both of you. You asked me the question earlier, and I want to turn it back because I had this primed up before. What do you believe is the reason why most salespeople do not do this today? They're not what I described. They don't have the Navy SEAL mentality of, I'm charging in to learn and stay sharp with everything.
I don't think most people are interested in getting 1% better at all. I think they are more interested in a hack that makes them 87% better overnight. And so rather than trying to get 1% better for 87 days, they'll spend 87 days looking for the hack to get 87% better. So that is a sort of short-term mindset, potentially, lack of discipline, potentially, a lack of knowing where to go to get 1% better. It's not for a lack of resources. It's almost there's too many resources. So I'm sort of frozen by trying to select which one. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, I mean, let me just talk trash about the three of us for a second. It's like all three of us in some way deliver some type of sales, coaching, training, advice, what have you. So somebody listening to this show is like, well, how the hell do I know which one of these guys is good, bad, and, great? That I think is hard for salespeople. And then, they're done disservices. They don't have a lot of training and coaching opportunities in the companies that they're at, which is partly the fault of the sales leader, but it's also the fault of the whole ecosystem, which doesn't give people the time and bandwidth and freedom to actually pour development into folks. So, I mean, I think that's essentially that's the root of it for me, at least.
I agree with everything Scott said. And I think it goes also back to what you said, Matt, earlier too, is like, this is a main thrust of community. Like COVID, I think woke everybody up to like, oh my gosh, I'm isolated and I need to find my people. And then as they found the people, they got better at seeking advice. And, for the people just getting their career started or their career started in sales, it doesn't mean they're young, because a lot of people transition from other industries. That's the hard part of like, well, yes, I'm digitally native and I can go Google stuff, but that's still kind of stale, right? Mm-hmm. You find a community, you find Scott, GTM United, or the old Thursday night sales where you get to communicate with other people is a big piece. I think wrapped around all that is the lack of leadership, particularly in this startup eco world that we live in, right? Where the leaders don't know how to do this themselves because they never had to do it, right? I remember my mom always saying, well, you go to these networking events and that's how you meet people. And she's in the financial industry and that mattered. And I'm not going to a networking event. And then even in the startup world, that didn't happen so much. And so I don't think the leaders have been taught the skill or understand it, so they can't pass it on to the next generation. And I also think particularly the Gen X leaders are afraid to do and learn something new because it shows them and exposes what they perceive as a weakness, not that they're being vulnerable, which is what people want, right? We were just told to shut up and figure it out, which meant I wasn't allowed to tell you that I wasn't good at something. Therefore, I can't open my mind to a certain topic. Therefore, I can't teach it down to the next generation. And then back to your macroeconomic piece, nobody's been through what we've been through. Mm-hmm. Everybody likes to try and claim it, but they haven't, so they don't know how to talk about that either. So that's my long reply.
But what's the best way for people to get in touch with you, Matt?
LinkedIn. I live on LinkedIn, Matt Doyon. You can check me out there. In there, you will find a link to our community. We're all building communities now, so you'll see a link to our Slack community. Jump in. You can contact me directly there. Send me a DM, either through LinkedIn or through the community, and we'll catch up there. Keep working on this stuff.
Awesome. We appreciate you spending some time with us. This was a lot of fun. We learned a lot. I got a lot to think about now.
Yeah.
Good or bad. I got a lot to think about now. And we thank everybody for joining us today on the Serpent Sales Podcast, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Matt.
This is great. Thanks, guys.